Hello, my name is Jackson Valentine, and today I will be presenting on two secure email protocols, POP3S and SMTPS. These protocols are essential for protecting email communications, both when retrieving messages from a server and when submitting or sending messages between clients and servers. My presentation will focus on how these protocols are configured in real server environments, specifically using Dovecot for POP3OS, on Linux, Internet Information Services on Windows, and Postfix on Linux for SMTPS. I will also explain several hardening recommendations that ensure these services are resilient against common threats such as interception, spoofing, and abuse as spam relays. By the end of this presentation, you should understand how these protocols work, how to configure them securely, and why these hardening steps are necessary. Here's the agenda for my presentation. I'll begin with an overview for POP3S, followed by a discussion of how it is configured using the Dovecot mail server on Linux. I will then move into hardening recommendations that make POP3S more secure in practice. Next, I will shift to SMTPS, explaining what it is and why it's important. After that, I'll go into detail on SMTPS, on how SMTPS can be configured using IIS on Windows and Postfix on Linux. Once I've covered configuration, I'll provide at least 3 hardening recommendations for each platform. Finally, I'll wrap up with key takeaways to summarize the most important points. POP3, or Post Office Protocol version 3, is one of the oldest email protocols still in use. It allows a client such as Outlook or Thunderbird to allow email from mail server. By default, POP3 communicates on port 110 and does not include encryption. This is a problem because it means usernames, passwords, and contents of email messages are all sent across the network in clear text, which can be intercepted by an attacker. To fix this weakness, POP3S was introduced. POP3S runs POP3 traffic through SSL or TLS tunnel, usually on port 995. This ensures that login credentials and email data are encrypted during transmission, protecting against eavesdropping and tampering. POP3S is especially common in situations where users want to download their messages and store them locally instead of keeping them on the server. And one of the most common server applications used for implementing POP3OS on Linux is Dovecot. Dovecot is one of the most widely used mail server applications on Linux for both POP3 and IMAP. It is known for its performance, simplicity, and strong security. When configuring Dovecot for POP3S, the administrator edits the configuration file, which is located at etc dovecot/dovecot.config. To enable POP3S, the configuration specifies that both POP3 and POP3S should be active by setting protocols equal to POP3 and POP3S. Next, TLS setting must be defined by pointing to the appropriate certificate and private keys on the server. Once this is done, Dovecot will begin listening for POP3S connections on port 995, and users can securely retrieve their mail with encryption enabled. Alright, on to hardening. Hardening POP3S is crucial because email servers are frequently targeted by attackers. First, administrators should enforce only modern versions of TLS, specifically TLS 1.2 and 1.3. Older versions such as SSLE3 or TLS 1.0 have known vulnerabilities and should be disabled. Second, strong certificates such as RSA, so these 2048-bit keys, or EEC-based certificates should be used to ensure that clients can properly verify the server's identity. Third, authentication methods should be restricted so that plaintext logs are disabled unless wrapped inside TLS. Finally, failed login attempts should be limited or rate limited to prevent brute force attacks. Together, these steps ensure that POP3S remains a reliable and secure method for retrieving email. Alright, SMTPS overview. SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is the standard protocol for sending email. By default, it uses port 25 and does not include encryption, which means both credentials and messages content could be exposed to attackers. SMTPS solves this by using TLS to encrypt the connection. Traditionally, SMTPS used port 465, but modern practice favors port 587, with Start TLS, which begins as plain text connection and then upgrades to TLS. In both cases, SMTPS ensures that login credentials and email content remain protected during transmission, making it the secure standard for sending messages from client to server or between servers. Okay, configuring SMTPS on IIS Windows. On Windows servers, SMTPS can be configured through the Internet Information Services, or IIS. The first step is to install SMTP server feature using the Server Manager. After installation, administrators configure bindings to enable TLS on the appropriate port, typically port 587 or 465. Next, a certificate must be assigned within IIS Manager under the SMTP virtual server properties. Finally, secure submissions should be enforced so that all client connections must use encryption. These steps ensure that email is sent through IIS is transmitted securely and that clients cannot connect without encryption. Alright, so IIS SMTPS hardening recommendations. Hardening SMTPS on IIS is critical to prevent it from being abused as spam relay or targeted in cryptographic attacks. Administrators should disable weak protocols and ciphers, ensuring only TLS 1.2 and TLS 1.3 are supported. Authentication should always be required so that only authorized users can send mail, and anonymous relay should be prohibited. Detailed logging should be enabled, and relay restrictions should be applied so that only trusted domains or IP addresses can use the server for outbound mail. If webmail components are deployed alongside IIS, HTTP Strict Transport Security, or HSTS, should be enabled to enforce encryption in the browser. Taken together, these measures significantly reduce the risk of IIS being misused or compromised. Alright, configuring SMTPS on Postfix Linux. Postfix is one of the most widely used mail transfer agents, or MTAs, on Linux systems. To enable SMTPS, administrators edit the master.cf configuration file to specify that the SMTPS service should be active on port 465. TLS parameters such as the certificate and key file locations are then defined in the main.cf configuration file. Excuse me. It is also common to set the TLS security level to encrypt, ensuring that encryption is always enforced for client connections. Once the configuration is complete, the postfix service is restarted and the server will begin accepting secure SMTP connections. Alright, hardening recommendations for postfix SMTPS. Postfix should be hardened to avoid both direct compromise and misuse as spam relay. Administrators should enforce TLS 1.2 or higher while disabling older protocols such as SSLv3 and TLS 1.0 and TLS 1.1. Authentication should always be required before relaying mail to ensure that only valid users can send through the server. Message size limits and connection rate limits should also be set to prevent denial of service attacks, where users try to overwhelm the server with excess traffic. Finally, postfix should be configured to use only strong ciphers and, if possible, enable OCSP stapling so that clients can quickly verify the validity of the server certificate without relying on external lookups. These steps combine to create a resilient and secure mail transfer environment. In summary, POP3S and SMTPS play critical roles in securing email communications. POP3, when deployed with Dovecot, ensures that email retrieval is encrypted and safe from eavesdropping, SMTPS, implemented through IIS on Windows and Postfix on Linux, secures email submission by encrypting credentials and message content. Hardening is essential for both protocols and includes enforcing modern TLS versions, requiring authentication, and restricting relaying to prevent abuse. By following these practices, organizations can ensure that their email infrastructure is resilient, trustworthy, and capable of withstanding modern threats. And here are my references. Thank you so much for watching my video. Have a good rest of your day.